Welcome to this week's episode of Art Wisdom with Chris and Kat. And this week we are talking about why your marketing is not working. And we're doing that because we got so many questions relating to selling art, marketing. Do you want to read out some of the questions that we've got? And then
I think it's a good place to start, and also it's going to help everyone understand what we're going to talk about today. So my question is how to build the right marketing strategy to sell art if you still don't have your niche. We've got lots of different questions. Let me carry on. I'm just going to talk about specifically the ones related to this. How to get your art in front of the right audience. Is it really necessary to have just one style or a niche? How to find your audience. How do you get more clients? How to market to art to my design clients when my design client target is so different from my general audience. And we've had another question along those lines, which is which I can't find right now, which is how do I get the right clients? How do I get non-art? How do I get Sorry, the way this is written is confusing, but it's like, how do you get people into your store that aren't other artists, that are your clients instead?
Yeah, so people who want to buy and not just artists saying.
Right.
How do you do that? That's great. Yeah.
So this is such a big thing that we're going to split it across like 3 different episodes, but today we are going to be talking about purpose, and it's all about why you exist, what you stand for, and actually it doesn't matter what tactics or strategies you use for marketing. If you've not worked this out and you don't have something along these lines to say, you're never going to find your clients, and you're never going to be able to get the right clients without it. Do you want to explain briefly what purpose is, Chris?
Well, yeah, and it was really interesting because all the questions were to do with the end results. And when we looked through the questions, we sort of went, this is all to do with actually the root. What's the root cause of this? Why is your marketing not working? So in this part 1, we're just going to talk about the purpose. And the purpose is why you exist. Why are you doing what are you doing? Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're just going to send out confused messages down the line in your marketing. So you've got to be very clear on what gets you up in the morning. Why are you producing your art? What do you want to say to the world? What do you want? What do you want to give? What's your story?
Yeah, and so because like a lot of people confuse what art is, and so art, and I have to explain at the beginning because I think it's important. So there's art and there's craft, right? So craft is the physical act of making a piece, like how skilled are you at doing that kind of thing. And most people think that that is what art is. That's just the craft side, and the craft can help with the art, but ultimately art is what is the message that you're trying to get across to people. Now, there are a lot of artists that are very successful that probably haven't even realized that they have a consistent message for their artwork, the art in itself, right? They might have not even realized, like, so for instance, I follow this beautiful woman who she makes these beautiful pieces. Her name is Kath Simard. She's a photographer, and she creates these like landscapes. She goes and hikes out into the wilderness, and she like, because we had a brief interaction, and I was like, explaining what art is, and she didn't really agree. And I was like, your art is really covered this, because her art is all about like exploring the unknown, getting out into the darkness, adventure, being brave and getting out there. And it's like also this like exploring the beauty of nature, right? And that's why people who are into that, like, they find her. In the same way that for me, I'm all about space, the cosmos, just like how incredible it is. It just blows my mind. And for me, it's like all my artwork is about a connection to something much bigger than I am. And it's such an important thing to me. Like, the more I think about it, the more it gives me like goosebumps, right? And like your purpose, Chris, in my mind, is just about producing joy and like the beauty of colors and making environments like happy and feeling safe. I don't know if that is what you get from yours.
I do. I just love beautiful things and color. So for me, a painting has to be like beautifully aesthetically beautiful, and my colors just are always there. So it doesn't have to be anything, you know, like really, I was going to say deep and meaningful. It can absolutely be deep and meaningful, because there's so many artists that want their message to be really thought-provoking and make people think. Like, who's the one?
But it has to mean something to you as an artist, and it
Yes.
has to connect with you. And I think that people can just, if it's just something you're saying, like, it shouldn't necessarily be said like, I paint for this particular reason, in order to make you sound good to other people. It's got to be something you really deeply feel. And it doesn't have to feel, it doesn't have to sound good to other people. Like, you don't necessarily have to be doing like, you know, it doesn't have to be linked to like deep charitable roots or anything like that. It could be just something that is like part of your history. And I actually personally believe that most times artwork purposes are deeply linked to our experiences, and like how we, even non-art, like specifically non-art experiences, but life experiences, like what got you to this point, what were the highs and the lows, and actually often the things that we pour out onto the page are that, you know.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the artist before who I absolutely love his work, love the texture and all that, Ben Quilty. But he does lots of war things and tragic things that, you know, that's really important to him. I'm not so much on the content that he does for a lot of his work, but I like his techniques and that. But I think I've always thought as well that, you know, a purpose and a meaning has to be something like that. And it so doesn't. And I think it's that thing, Kat, that you said, like, so it sounds good to other people. Like, it's like, you know, this is my soul, this is my, you know, I'm producing this art that will change the world. But even producing beautiful paintings that people will walk by and have in their home, and they look at, and it makes them smile. You know, you can't think much better than that, that somebody looks at your artwork and it actually makes them feel more cheery. That's a really nice thing. It doesn't have to be like really dramatic.
And it's funny, but sometimes the results, even the basic things, even just like, can have dramatic outcomes. And Ian and I always tell this story because I think it's really important, but it gives good context. And it was with Tony Hawk, he's a pro skateboarder, and with the since disgraced cyclist, and I can't remember his name, it's just Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong obviously had gone through cancer treatment, and now was like, this is at the height of his career, was like before all of the scandal hit with like doping or whatever it was. He was doing a lot for cancer charities, so he was sending kids who couldn't afford to have like these specialist treatments. He was paying for them to go to hospital, he was buying equipment, he was funding cancer research. He had like, when he went out and hit the roads and cycled, that was his purpose for doing it. And there was this chance meeting with Tony Hawk, who's a pro skateboarder, and he was like, man, I wish I just had something like you, you know. He's like, you do all this stuff for charity. He's like, I'm just a dude, I just love rolling around and I just love the feeling of it. And he said, he turned around to Tony and he said, dude, probably didn't say that, but paraphrasing, the dude. No, I'm sure he didn't say that. He's British, isn't he? He said, excuse me, sir. He said, you do so much. He's like, you've inspired a whole generation of kids to go out and get on skateboards and move and be active and enjoy motion. And he was like, funnily enough, he was like, you've probably done more for kids' cancer than I have. And like, Tony was like, what? And he was like, the number one cause of cancer in children is obesity. And actually the single greatest way to stop kids, you know, help kids from like being obese and is to get them to be active and get them to move. And he was like, strangely enough, you have probably saved more lives than I will ever. And Tony, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. So he went in that moment from, I'm just a guy that rolls around on a board because it feels good and that's just what I'm doing, to realizing that, oh my gosh, I have actually inspired a whole generation of people to get out and be fit and be active. The only difference about the way that he viewed his work, before and after, was that one interaction where it just clicked. And I think a lot of the time we will paint stuff that we're obsessed with and we love, or it might not be painting, it might be making music, it might be creating graphics. We're just drawn to it, whatever it is, and we can't quite put our finger on it. But at some point, there'll be that aha moment. It doesn't always have to come immediately. Sometimes it takes time, but sometimes you just need like a super famous cyclist to tell you. Right? But the point is that now having that purpose and understanding it, he was able to then take himself from where he was to like the height of his career, with that new focus and mission and the purpose. And like for me, I came to it through experiences in my life. Like the reason I like space is because I went through a time when I was so stressed. I was working in an office. I was like basically almost broken down to like a little smoldering smithereen. I'd been working 7 days a week. I'd been sleeping at the office, because I was too tired to drive home and I would have killed myself on the road. I was sleeping under my desk. I was having the worst time in my life and I was so depressed. And I just remember thinking like, why am I doing this? And that was the thing that like spun me into having this realization about there's so much out there, like all this cosmos, all this vastness, and I'm stuck here under a desk with crud stuck to my face, being woken up by the lady vacuuming in the morning. And that's, you know, that's something that's why I do it now every day. Like on the days where it's hard, I think about that moment and realizing that space can be that thing that could probably lift someone else out of extreme stress. And like I would say, like, you look at a sunset, it's relaxing, but you look at the stars and it's like that on steroids. So there's a lot of people that are stressed and overwhelmed, and I need to put my artwork out there just to allow people to reconnect. But everybody came to, even if you don't realize that's why you've got to your thing. Most of the time, if you look at your highest highs and your lowest lows, and you think about that and you sort of start to collect, well, actually, why is it I'm obsessed with making this particular artwork? Oh, it's because there was a time in my life I felt so unsafe and I was so uncertain, and all I wanted to do was just surround myself with a little bit of joy. It was just the thing that gave me breath to get through. And like for you, that was almost like for you, and now you create that, like the lady that came and bought the rooster from you, that, which is amazing. Sorry, you should share that.
Yeah, well, she just went into an art shop, seen the rooster, and just completely fell in love with it. And then the story came out that her house had burnt down in the fires in Australia and she'd lost all her artwork. And this little rooster painting was just like the start of her new build, her new life. And it was, you know, a real joy for her to actually see this painting. And then maybe she could see the start of maybe her new life, her new home. But my thing was probably similar, where like I went through like a terrible time where we lost the business, nearly lost our house many years ago, and a home was my sanctuary. It was my safe place. It was shut the door at the end of the day, and you know that nobody was going to come and call and hassle you. Like we had bailiffs, we had everything, because this company went bust on us and it sent us in a spiral with our business. So home was like really shut the door, was safe, and that. And I suppose painting was my thing, so it's like creating paintings to make that space even feel more your own, more special, and just your happy little place. So I think it's important for everybody to have that, their sanctuary, you know, their little their home.
So the reason why I think it's important talking about these like how you came to do the thing that you love. And of course, I understand like lots of people have like lots of different things they're interested, and some people ultimately just interested in the craft.
Mm.
And so realistically, you could say, oh, well, my purpose and mission is actually more about self-development, because like the reason why you sit there with the pen and paper or paintbrush or whatever it is because I want to get better and I want to achieve something. And these are all steps in and becoming a better person. But that messaging the reason why you're doing it is the thing that you've got to tell your clients. That's how they find you. When they see the picture, they're not looking at a picture of or whatever it is you're drawing. They're looking at the picture with the message of, I am striving every day to be better. And I hope this image on your wall reminds you to do the same. Because ultimately, every time you see an artwork, you're not just seeing the artwork. Obviously, there is that, oh, it's, because and we say it all the time, we're not making necessarily wall decorations or making things with meaning. And when they look at, although in your case, it's interesting because it all is all intertwined, right? You are making
even the growth thing, like the growth for me is to be the best artist I can be. That's part of that as well. And personal development has been a massive part of my life, your life. It's who I am to keep growing, and that's part of, well, a big part of why I turn the art into a business. It doesn't have to be a business. It can just be complete joy and just do it for myself. And that's, I suppose I struggled with that for a long time because it's a complete joy for me to do the art.
Right.
I don't need to do it for anybody else. Don't need to market it. Don't need, but the other flip side of that is, well, where's the personal growth in that for me? Because that's a massive thing for me, is how do I keep growing as a person, and to actually creating a business will be the biggest growth that you've ever had. As anyone watching this who's doing it in a business will know that you will, there'll be lots of struggles and tough things and doing things that you don't want to do, like when we started, we loved the podcast and everything, but starting a podcast can be a growth situation that you've just put yourself in. If I was doing this just for the joy of just producing the art, I don't have to do a podcast, don't have to do marketing, don't have to do videos, And I think a lot of you might be going, oh, that sounds great. But it's like, for me, it's like, well, where would the growth be for me in that then?
I think that I heard something really astounding that Gary Vee said earlier, and I think it really applies to this. And he said, people who are like unhappy or vindictive or like, are very loud online. There is so much outrage and upset. Obviously, a lot of it is well placed. A lot of it isn't well placed. But actually, what his comments was like, the people that are happy, that have full of joy, they are super quiet. And actually, it's our responsibility to put out as much joy, as much focus, as much passion, as much happiness, because we can't really live in a society where the only voices that are heard are ones of destruction and anger and upset. We also, like, there are two ways to fix a problem, and obviously it's important to highlight issues. I'm talking about when there are like angry people about non-issues, and we all know what, we've all seen many of that, right? But it's like, we can't allow the world to, it's our responsibility to put out all that goodness into the world. And the truth is that we could end up helping a lot of people. And a lot of people's lives will be infinitely better. There is nothing worse, I feel, than going to the grave with a joy, a skill, a passion, unexplored and unshared. There are only limited amount of times on this beautiful planet. And there are lots of people, there's Les Brown is a motivational speaker, and I love him. And he said, imagine just going to the grave and it's just saying like, not used up, like never reached potential. How sad would it be to be on your gravestone and be like, oh, I never shared it with the world. You can produce for your own joy, and I'm all about that. But I feel like we owe it to everyone as a society to fill the world with joy, to share. Like when people go, oh man, I've got to make this video and I'm so tired. But realistically, you know, you might change someone's life by seeing that artwork. And actually, and when I say artwork, I mean not just the craft of it, but the message of it. And the reason why people's marketing isn't working is because people are attracted not just to a visual style, but a purpose, a meaning. It means something to them. Like when I talk about like connecting with nature, something much bigger than us, and finding like context in the crazy world of life, like, you know, you think our problems are so big, but then you like zoom out a few miles and then a few light years, and then all of a sudden you sort of, those worries start to melt away, and it makes life, doesn't fix things, it's not a magic bullet, but it makes things a lot more bearable. And I think that's so important. So, but again, like a lot of people, like a lot of those questions were like, do I have to find a niche? Do I have to stick to one style? For me, I'm like, you could technically have a message that is just the message, the thing that you're connected to, and explore it with lots of different things. You have lots of different styles. I could do art, space art, I do it already, photography and digital artwork. I do all sorts of different things. You could technically do it in dance and graphics, and I mean, you could do music for it or whatever it is, right? But if you have the purpose down, and I think also it's okay at the beginning to change your purpose while you're exploring the ideas.
That can happen quite a bit. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people might not want to settle on something because they think, oh, this is it for me for good. When you find it, you'll know. But you have to sort of try things out, I think, anyway. What do you
It'll
think?
evolve. It completely evolve, and that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I suppose the big thing is trying to find it in the first place. But it's like, be light-hearted with it as well, because if we get too serious with it, then it's really hard. We get stuck and that. And then when you said before about you're at the end of the day and it, you know, you didn't reach your potential, how sad would that be? Sort of look at that. Okay, well, what didn't you reach? What did you want to reach? You know, try and flip it on its head, because it's like trying to get ways out to make you sort of think, well, what is it that you want to share? What is it that you'll be missing out on? What is it that you wanted to say to the world that you go, oh, I missed it and I didn't have the chance? And that might help you sort of put you on track of finding what it is for you.
Yeah. And as I said, like the reason why people's marketing isn't working is because you have to, you cannot be for everyone.
No, don't try to be.
And because if you are for everyone, you're for no one. You don't stand for anything. And the truth is that you have to stand for something, and you have to do it for a particular purpose. And the people that are also passionate about what you're passionate about, or the things that you believe in, will find you. Oh, heck, they will find you. Right. So
that was a big question as well, wasn't it? How to attract the right people? How do I not get artists just looking at my page, but artists buy art as well, so I wouldn't even discount that. But you will find the right people because they want to get to know you, because they find it interesting what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. And so and also it's freeing in some ways, because when you have like a purpose, why you get out of bed and why you create and why you want to put stuff out there, it removes some of the overwhelm. Because I think that at the beginning it can be quite overwhelming. What styles do I pick? What do I do? Like, oh gosh, there's like all these different things I can try, and it's a lot. Like, what do I draw today, sort of thing. Whereas I think when you have something, and by all means, I feel like people can stand for multiple things, but as far as marketing goes, when you talk to someone, you have to have the core idea. And you can have obviously a separate channel to do separate things. If you know, for instance, you're really passionate about animals, for instance, and then you're also passionate about something else, whatever it is, I don't know, like adrenaline sports. You wouldn't necessarily combine those two on one page. The people that stand for I care about and love animals, and it might be the purpose might be I've gone through times and stress and depression, and animals are just non-judgmental and they're always there for you. And there was a time when it was difficult in my life, and then I had an animal and it connected with me. And that's why I draw animals, because I want to remind there's, beautiful creatures out there that will never judge you. That might be, just made that up on the fly, that might be that thing. The people that are passionate and that will buy that art aren't the same people that are like adrenaline sports. And adrenaline sports might be, I've always been scared, I always wanted to go out there and try new things and break barriers, and I just really I love the thrill of it and whatever it is. And there's something very freeing, and maybe it's about being free, or maybe it's about being adventurous, or whatever it is. The two people, those two different audiences, are not the same. Whilst they might have a few people, like it's a Venn diagram, there might be a few overlapping people, but generally speaking, if you think about when you go to your favorite artist or your music artist, if you think about what they produce, they most likely don't produce a jumble sale of lots of different things. They probably just make one specific type of music and you love it. And they make music because of a particular reason. They might not have ever expressed it, but most often you'll find it in the lyrics, right? For people that do listen to lyrics, I'm not one of those. I just listen to melody.
Oh, I love lyrics.
Yeah, I cannot hear them. It's funny. Like, anyway, something for another conversation. But so I think, and it seems abstract. Why would we be talking about purpose when we're talking about marketing? But it's like literally everything. It's the foundation.
Yeah. And it makes it easier for you to do your posts as well, because that's can be a task for people. Well, what do I talk about? I'm doing this post, think of like, what are you passionate about? Besides, it might be just completely your art, and it might be the color, but it might be, like Katz's space. Mine, it's definitely personal development, growth. So what is it that that floats your boat in general, makes you up as a person? Make a list of all the things that you're passionate about, and then how does that work in with your art? Does it work in with your art? Do certain things work in with your art? Like Kat was just saying, like if you've got adrenaline and then puppies, which one do you want to be your art towards? Because we have this saying, if you're chasing two rabbits, you're not going to get either.
Oh, that's a great saying. Yeah.
So just focus on one rabbit. Just like, especially to kick you off. If you get it, then you're up to like, you've got amazing fans and followers and that, then you might be able to say, hey, actually, I love skydiving as well. And that might lead into something else. But I'd suggest when you're starting to really just get solid on one message.
Yeah. I think, and the funny thing is that you could technically maybe get puppies and adrenaline sports to work if, let's say, the
puppy on a parachute.
If, let's say, you were creating them because, just trying to think of a way that I could connect the two. Oh my God. So for instance, if oh gosh, how would I even connect them? But it might be let's say your whole thing is personal development, and in your statement, or the purpose you're doing it is go for it because you're never going to get judged, right? And that's your thing, right? The beauty of it is that you could then say you're never going to be judged. That's why I'm drawing this puppy, because I just want to remind you that there are beings out there that will never judge you. Well, unless you hate it, but you know what I mean. Oh gosh. Or for instance, and the same for like drawing. So you could technically draw multiple things with a unified message. Now, some people have this, they want to draw lots of different things. there is this habit, at least when we're starting, to just sort of copy and replicate other people. That's fine when you're practicing the craft, but when you're ready to stop practicing the craft and you want to actually sell art, you have to ask yourself, why am I drawing this? Why am I drawn to this image? What does it mean to me? Like, you know, there was a whole phase of people drawing you know, sort of pretty ladies or whatever it is in this very particular style with maybe butterflies and that kind of stuff. Why is it that you're drawing that? Is it because you saw someone else draw it, or is it because actually it means something to you? And it might mean something to you. You might find a meaning. Whatever it is, find the meaning of whatever it is and then put it on the page. And if you are someone that likes variety, let's say you like to draw all sorts of different things, but maybe there are specific things, like maybe you like to draw lots of different things, but they just happen to be you know, all the stuff, like all different types of animals, or maybe there'll be all types of fruit. Maybe you're into like still life, or you like to draw different celebrities, whatever it is. Just find the reason you love it. And it might be like the Tony Hawk situation at the beginning, where he just was compelled to do something. He just didn't quite know why at the beginning until he sort of sat. But you can always ask yourself why. And one thing I would say, sorry, I'm talking a lot today, is sometimes it becomes more obvious when you start to sell art. And I know that that is not helpful if you're beginning. But in the same way that when you had that lady bought by that rooster, like for me, and actually you don't need to sell art. Sometimes you just need people to see your art, and you can literally ask them, what does this mean to you? Why are you attracted to this? Like for me, I've had a lot of people message me to say, I just live in extreme overwhelm. One of my most amazing clients, and I don't really like calling him a client because he's a deep friend, I just care about him so much. Paul is a resuscitation nurse, and he gained his qualification and went into the hospital system just as COVID hit. He had to do CPR on people he knew would never be able to make it because their lungs were full. It was the beginning when there was no vaccines and no, you know, no understanding like how to treat it, or no antivirals, or none of that stuff. We didn't really know what we were dealing with. And he was thrown into the situation where he was having to do this, and then the family is there on Zoom watching, and like the stress of it and having to do that again and again. And I think he said there was one day where I lost several people because of course their symptoms were so bad, there was nothing he could have done more that could have saved them. But of course the coulda, shoulda, woulda, like that goes around in your head. And he said he got really bad PTSD with seeing the faces of dead people that he just couldn't save. He really wanted to, and then all the stress, like having the family watch, and of course they want to be there for the last moment, whatever it is, as you would. But you know, he would get back home and he was broken, and the way that he just managed to get back in and just you know, reconnect with the world was by looking at space pictures. And I remember him telling me that story, and I just felt like I felt like all over the place, because I was like, on one side, I felt like I wanted to cry because that is so much for a human being to go through. Because it's so funny. The reason why I found out is because I signed a painting, a print, and he started to cry. And I was like, why are you crying? I can't understand it. And then he explained this, and I was like, damn, like you know, I had no idea. So intense. And then I realized, like, by having those interactions, I was like, I understand now what my art means. I understand what it means to me, but then now I kind of understand how other people are using it too. And that really helped.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to have someone buy your art to get that feedback. You can just ask people. You know, you can just ask people. Like, there's nothing wrong with people posting a photo of their artwork, print, graphics, or whatever it is. I'm saying, hey, what does this make you feel like? Or, you know, what does space mean to you? Or in your case, like, what makes you feel happy and safe at home, or whatever it is? Explore those ideas and have actual conversations on social to understand it better.
Yeah, so it's just putting yourself out there to start with, you know, because it is just you know, because we do sort of go, oh, it's just art, it's just, but it does make a difference to people, because I think take for granted what we can do. You know,
Yeah.
I get messages saying thank you for posting your beautiful artworks, you know, and you just think, oh, that's really nice, isn't it, that somebody has even taken the time to send you a message, so that it must make some difference to them, just seeing a picture of something beautiful. So, and I
Yeah.
reckon that you're creating art, you feel like you're creating something that is beautiful, because we all
Yeah.
put our stuff out there because we're proud of it and we love what
Yeah.
we're doing. So we do make a difference. It's, you know, yeah, we don't always know it. It's that inspiring thing as well. You know, we don't know who we're inspiring. We don't know who we're encouraging most of the time.
Yeah.
But occasionally we get those messages and we do find out. So to one of those messages, there's probably like 100 other people who don't message
Oh,
you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true. Like, it took a long time for me to accept that I was an artist. It took a long time for me to call myself an artist, because I would always roll my eyes because, like, oh God, an artist. You know? But the truth is that whilst you could live and survive without art, you know, you wouldn't die, but would
Yeah.
life be worth living? Imagine life with no Netflix because there's no movies, no TV series, no graphics. Everything is bland and plain and functional only. There's no patterns on clothing. There's no artwork anywhere. There's no literacy. There's no, you know, there's no
Yeah.
beautiful novels or music. Or could you imagine your
Mm.
life without all of that goodness? And I think sometimes we underplay where we are in life, and because we think, well, you know, I guess you could technically live without it, of course,
Yeah.
but would life be worth living without it?
Mm.
You know, I mean, there would be many things to live for, but I think that you know, art makes things, life way more bearable in
Yeah.
many cases. And I think it helps people. It can do all sorts of things. It can raise awareness on important issues. It can explore, even just for like, as a way to like explore things that have happened in your past that you sort of need answers to, and it's the catharsis of producing something that helps you understand it. But ultimately, I feel like there's a parallel universe where you didn't make that rooster painting, and that woman who had her house burned down didn't find the beginning of her next thing. There's probably another universe where, you know, my friend didn't have that thing, you know, like space artwork for him to like come down with, and you know, he might be in a significantly worse place. Who knows? You never really know the impact of the work that you do, but there is an impact.
Mm.
Even if it sometimes seems a bit silly what we're doing, we can make people's lives immensely better.
Well,
So,
suppose you go and look around, you know, you look around, if you look around in shops, if you look around in people's houses, you look around in hospitals, anywhere, you'll see art on the walls. We wouldn't be putting it there and paying all this money that people do if it didn't make a difference, if it wasn't of value to people's lives. Because I think, you know, I've been very aware of doing this. It's just a painting. It's just, you know, like it doesn't, it's not food. It's not
yeah,
something that we, you know, my computer, it's not, it's just, and you say like it's a luxury, but it's actually not a luxury, because even people who don't have a whole heap have got prints and, you know, things around their house and decorate their home,
yeah.
because
It's
we have a like a nurturing need, sort of, don't we, to actually I don't know, make
surround
us
ourselves.
surround yourself and make yourself feel nurtured, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's probably a bit
I think
primal actually.
it is very primal. I mean, we've been producing artwork since the beginning of
Yeah,
time,
yes,
to, and it's been used with purpose. If you even look at the original, you know, cave paintings or tablet stone drawings, they
yeah,
were all done for good reason. Often they were like sharing, passing down important stories. They were telling legends that help people run their lives. Like, you know, a lot of stories, I obviously know all about space stuff, but they were talking about particular sky, you know, different gods in the sky and like things that were happening, because encoded in those stories, encoded in the artwork, was the message of like when to plant your crops because certain stars are rising, and that's showing you it's now coming into spring and this is when you should be doing things. So there's like a lot of stuff like that. Like if you look at like even like any kind of art in the past, like it's often got a reason. And I think sometimes people look at like abstract art and they might go, I don't get it, I think it's just dumb, it's, you know, it's just some random blobs, or it's just a square on a page, what does that mean? And I talk about Rothko often, but like he was so obsessed with color that he wanted to create layers of color so that people could experience color so deep and rich that it would make people cry, because his experience of color was something so important to him. And once you know that, you never look at another Rothko the same. But again, like,
so
that's fine, but you can connect with the meaning of why he's producing it. Like,
yes, and I'm just not his people, and that's fine.
That's it. Well, I would say you might even be a little bit of his people. Like the actual craft of it might not be you what you're about, but you're all about color.
I am, but the end result of it as a
well, it's
byproduct.
interesting. So with oil paint, as you know, like you can glaze over the top of it. So you have light that penetrates a layer and then it hits the layer behind, and it's reflected and comes back through the layers. So seeing a Rothko in person is very different from seeing a Rothko on print. On print, they can never reproduce those glazed layers of color. And when you see one in person, it's a very different experience. So it's probably something that when you see it in person, you'll be like, oh, but it's obviously not something people see every day because they are many, many millions of dollars and pounds and whatever. So, but the reason we keep on coming back to purpose and why your marketing isn't working is if you don't stand for anything, you're not going to find your right clients. Your right clients aren't going to find you. And the way that you produce your marketing isn't just like, hey, here's a painting I drew, or this is a picture of this thing. It's talking about why you love this particular subject matter. You talk about it. And what's great is people that hate talking about themselves can talk about the thing they're passionate about. You know, I tell talk their hind legs off a donkey kind of thing. And that it makes it so much easier to put out content into the world. So it's funny because it seems so abstract, but ultimately just understanding that this is why I do it. And you don't necessarily have to have it written up as a mission statement or like a purpose statement or whatever, but you do have to have a consistency of what you talk about and why those things are important to you. So Chris, if you had to pull out your top 3 things about understanding and creating your purpose, what would they be?
Number 1 would be, I think most of my number ones like this, don't take it too seriously. Just explore it, because this is not like, you know, once you've gone, oh, this is my purpose, it doesn't mean that you actually, you know, you have to stick to that, because it will evolve. It will. Number 2 is make a list of all the things that are interesting to you. So, you know, what is it that you find that you're spending most of your time doing? You know, even if you know, you like watching sitcoms, comedy is your thing. If you like reading books, personal development, if all these other things that interest you as well, they all make up you. So that will make up part of your purpose. These are things, because this will make it so easy for you, because you love talking about them anyway. So that's the whole point, because marketing can be hard. And I think this is why a lot of the questions were around, what do I write? I don't know what to write. Then you're making it hard for yourself, because you're not talking about things that you absolutely love and that are part of you already, that you'll naturally talk about. So number 3 is maybe look at other people's things. If you can't think what inspires you, go to other people's Instagram feeds, say, look through them. Why are you following certain people? What is it? Because that will give you an inkling. I follow them because they talk about me, again, personal development. They talk about growth. They talk about business. And other ones, they beautiful art. They love the colors that this person uses, even interior design, the colors that an interior designer will use. I'll follow them. So I know why I'm following them and what I like from them and what I get from them. So it's like, well, that's what you can start giving to your followers as well, because that's what your whole package, that's what you're interested in. So here's my 3.
Love it. My 3 is, my first one's very similar to yours, Chris, which is you just need one. And it's okay if it's not perfect, but you've got to pick something and work from there. And it's just basically like, you don't necessarily want to switch it around every day, but definitely have a think about it and just start somewhere. Again, just, you can evolve it over time, and it does, because it takes a little while, and you'll have moments in your life where you have the ahas, but you need a focus and a direction. Start there. And just because you've got you know, a purpose doesn't mean you have to lock yourself into a very specific style of painting, drawing, or whatever. You can explore that purpose in many different dimensions as well, which is kind of good, especially for people that need variety. So number 1, you just need one. Start somewhere. Number 2, it doesn't have to sound good to other people. It just has to mean something to you, and it has to be something you're passionate about. I just feel like that's so important. I know ultimately it's about connecting with other people, sure, but realistically, it's from you. It has to be something you connect with, not just because you think it will make you sound good. Don't worry about that. You'll probably have more of an impact on something silly that you love, or whatever it is, or something that you think, oh, doesn't anyone really care about this? You'll be surprised. So that's number 2. It doesn't have to sound good to anyone. Number 3, it is usually based upon your life experiences, the highs and the lows, and the things that got you to where you are today. And it definitely helps to look at those things, as well as look at what, you know, just what you're drawn to. Look at like how you got here today. You know, list out your things that were the greatest things in your life and the most painful things, and see if there is anything in there that kind of, you know, you can start to see connections with. Not everything that I've gone through that's hard is as a result of my artwork, but there are definitely things that I have gone through that were the like birthing of it, I suppose. So I would definitely, if you're stuck and not sure where to go, I would definitely look at those things too. Any other comments, Chris? Anything that you want to add?
No, I think we've covered everything there. Most importantly is just like you said, get one. Find one. Just
Absolutely, start somewhere.
Not somewhere. Not somewhere.
Perfect. So ask us in the comments if you've got any questions about your purpose, or you want to just share it and just to get feedback. You know, write them in the comments below. As always, we will have all the social links in the description. Make sure you give us a follow on all the different platforms so that you can catch future episodes. We are on Facebook and all sorts of different places. And next episode, we are going to go to part 2 of why your marketing isn't working, and it is incredible. Can't wait to next episode. Until then, keep on creating, and I will see you next time.
See you.
Bye.